Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is interesting. Girls Not Brides. That's the website. The law in child marriage. Progressive legal frameworks are one element of a comprehensive response to address child marriage, as reflected within the Girls Not Brides theory of change. Any legal change to address child marriage has to be accompanied by a comprehensive approach supported by law, policies, and programs that put the autonomy and the rights of the girls at the center. Photo from Girls Not Brides, Graham Crouch. About child marriage. This section explores the role that laws can play within a broader holistic response to child marriage. It includes information on the minimum age of marriage and the importance of including gender perspectives in child protection laws and youth perspectives in gender-based violence laws. You can also explore the complexities surrounding the criminalization of child marriage. The basics of legal responses to child marriage. Child marriage is any marriage or informal union where at least one of the parties is under 18 years old. Where at least one of the parties is under 18 years old. Forced marriages are marriages in which one or both parties have not personally expressed their full and free consent. Well, how about that? Forced marriages are marriages in which one or both parties have not personally expressed their full, free consent to the union. Like all these child brides in Scientology. A child marriage is considered to be a form of forced marriage. Facts. If one or both parties have not expressed full, free, and informed consent. And they can get the children to lie. It's easier when you've got a big grown adult standing next to you telling you what you're supposed to say. Just like Jan Eastgate and all these other stories we've heard about Scientologist handlers with these children. The most widely accepted definition for a child is anyone under the age of 18, in line with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is important for any country to have a minimum age of marriage, as this legally protects children from abuse. How about that? Harm, violence, and exploitation. Laws to address child marriage should be part of a comprehensive legal and policy framework which addresses its root causes. Yeah, I guess that would just snuff out minor attracted people, wouldn't it? Including gender inequality. This framework should include issues such as marriage and divorce, including registration and solemnization of marriages, alimony, and custody of children. And we know, like probably the majority of this abuse, not all of it, but a huge majority, is done within these religions or cults that call themselves religions. Harmful practices such as dowry, which goes on in India and in the Middle East still. Bride price, polygamy, and female genital mutilation. Female genital mutilation. Cutting. That goes on in Africa, too. Not just Africa, but it's bad, guys. It's really, really bad. Property and inheritance. Sexual and gender-based violence, including identification of girls at risk in schools. Schools. You know, that's where predators go. And other community spaces And marital rape, marital rape, marital rape. No means no. Child labor and abuse. How about that? It's an easy way to take children across the state lines, isn't it? Huh? Trafficking, including sex trafficking and international marriage brokering. Yeah, that's a big thing that, oh, it's so sick. It's not even counting all the sex trafficking. Access to education, health care, and social securities. And passport. Mandatory birth and marriage registration, including registration of all marriages. Yeah, not having all these children off the books. Do you guys know how many babies are born throughout the world? But I'm thinking more in America. Do you know how many babies are born that are not even registered? Your head would spin if you knew how many. They're easy to take out, too, because they're not on paper. Including registration of all marriages, including civil, religious, and customary unions, is a means to track marriages and age of marriages. Child marriage laws in different countries. Countries take different legal approaches to child marriage. Some make child marriage a crime. Some ban or invalidate marriage below the legal minimum age. And others merely prescribe a minimum age of marriage without expressly criminalizing or banning it. That's kind of weird to me. In many countries, there may not be a single child marriage law, but it is instead regulated through other legislation, such as civil law, criminal law, and family law. There are also customary and religious laws, which vary from country to country. These are often specific to a location at the subnational level and open to interpretation by individual chiefs and community or traditional tribunals. In many countries, there are legal provisions which allow exceptions to the minimum age of marriage. You guys know these children are being sold, right? You know that, right? These loopholes can undermine the efficacy of legal protections for girls against child marriage. Examples include marriage upon parental consent or authorization of the court, or where customary or religious laws that set lower minimum ages of marriage take precedence over national law. I just remembered I had watched this documentary on, I forget which African country, but it was one of the African countries, and oh man, it was so bad. They're like these really old ass men, like 40, 50 years old, were marrying like 11 and 12-year-old girls. It was so sick. And the little girls weren't even developed enough, for you guys know what, right? But the men didn't care. And it was causing like real serious, like, how do I say this? Like real serious female problems for the little girls. It was so bad, you guys. So then the little girls would just like bleed and bleed and bleed. It was so bad. It was so bad. And then they would do this to these little girls, and then they would ostracize the little girls. It was so horrible. Horrible. That's because grown men are not... Anyways, you guys know. To find out more about national legislative responses to end child marriage, check out our Child Marriage Atlas and look up your country's profile to find out what the minimum age of marriage is in your country. Working with local and traditional or religious leaders, yeah, I don't trust that for 5 seconds, can be an effective strategy for ensuring customary and religious laws. That's where all that's going on. Do not permit child marriage. For more information on working with religious leaders, check out our brief. I mean, I'm sure there's some people in these religions that don't, they don't agree with that. I'm sure of that. Child marriage and criminalization. Laws alone are not enough to end child marriage. That's a fact. Too often governments use laws to respond to social issues, without also putting in place the policies and programs needed to support social change and address the drivers of the practice. Pedophiles. Any implementation of child marriage laws should be based on consultation with civil society organizations, including the participation of youth and adolescents, put girls right at the center, and complement and support community-based efforts to change social and gender norms which drive child marriage. Criminalization is the act of turning an activity into a criminal offense by making it illegal. In the context of child marriage, criminalization involves classifying the action as a criminal offense and attaching persecution and sanctions, such as jail or a fine. In many contexts, the law is used to punish as opposed to seeking justice and redressal. This can mean more emphasis is placed on stopping a marriage from happening rather than protecting girls who choose not to marry. That makes sense. Or who have been married. A lot of them, a lot of these little girls, they'll kill them if they don't agree to all this stuff. When advocating for legal change, it is important to know that a punitive approach such as criminalizing child marriage can lead to unintended negative consequences. That's what I was just saying. For girls, boys, and their families. Yeah, like death. Death is just one of them. In countries where criminalization exists, there are a range of people who may be held accountable or criminally punished for child marriage. For example, parents or guardians listen to that. For example, parents or guardians forcing underage girls and boys into marriage. Adults who receive a dowry for the marriage of children. Or how about a payoff? Officials and religious leaders who solemnize child marriages, pedos. Administrators who register or certify child marriages. You guys remember that whole thing that went on with the Mormons? Child Protective Services. I don't know how much is real and what's not, But they took all the children out, and then everyone was so upset that they wound up, I don't know exactly everything that happened, but they wound up putting everyone back in the same mind-controlled, psychopathic place. I believe it was in Texas somewhere. But I think maybe the child marriages stopped. I don't know, but they were trying to stop it. You can try to stop these things, but if somebody's like out of their mind, it's pretty hard to stop, especially if you've got like a whole bunch of people thinking in the same way, which is the point, of course. Administrators who register or certify child marriages, wealthy individuals who sponsor weddings of children. You guys know. Some leaders fund mass weddings to gain popular support. Some of the spouses may be children. And medical professionals, government employees, or civil servants who are involved or complicit in carrying out child marriages. The severity of the punishment for child marriage, where it is criminalized, can depend on a number of factors, such as whether the marriage was forced. Like, think about that statement. What child marriage wouldn't be forced? Hello? And how young the child is. Punishment also depends on how a state classifies the crime of child marriage. For example, as a felony, a misdemeanor, or infraction, the penalty doesn't always mean a prison sentence. Hence, you know what? I just want to bring this up. It's a little bit on a different note. But all these child predators that you see, they get some kind of a charge on them. If you'll ever notice, it's always what do you call that? Like when somebody's possession of child porn. That's all they get because it's a cover-up, bro. The penalty doesn't always mean a prison sentence. It could be a warning. community service, or a fine, for example. I don't think that's much of a punishment, do you? Criminal law distinguishes between intent and motive. Got to change people's mindset. If you got a grown man who wants to, a child, how are you going to change that? It's so sick to me. I know what I think. I can't say it here. Criminalization can have a number of negative impacts. Girls themselves can be punished. Here we go again, punishing the ones who are abused. Girls themselves can be punished for not reporting the assaults they are victims of. Oh, what a great system that is. You guys know. How many systems have we looked at, and they all do the same thing? So if the little girl gets raped, because she will, she's not going to tell because she knows what's going to happen to her. That's how they keep doing it, you guys. You guys know what I think. They may face social stigma, in other words, shaming, because that's what they do. Just like they do to the Scientology girls. Retaliation, yeah, we've seen the retaliation. O2D sent to the RPF, or, ostracized, sent away from their families. And mental distress. Imagine they're doing this to children. Associated with putting family members in prison. Oh, because it's your fault, right? It's your fault. Shank. And families and communities can be destabilized. How do I say this? Destabilized in cases where everyone that attended a wedding is imprisoned. That's that group stuff, guys, again. That's group punishment. What does group punishment do? It makes people that were violated not want to say anything. That's what that does. They do it in the military. There can be negative social impacts on families and children of the dissolution of child marriages, including stigma and ostracism. Well, yeah, they all do the same thing. Mormons do it. Jehovah's Witnesses do it. Scientology does it, but Scientology takes it to like the 10th level. Like they really do it to the 10th level. Brave New World, you guys. Other impacts include economic stresses. Well, we see that in Scientology. Because they're selling their children here, you guys. On families and the complexities of reclaiming dowry payments. That shit should be outlawed. I do believe there are a lot of places that it is outlawed, but it just needs to go. I mean, they used to do it in America as well, back in the old days. And back then it probably made more sense, but now all this stuff needs to go. And returning the bride price, you see, selling children. Girls' separation from children and custody issues. That reminds me of what went on with all the Mormons. It was crazy. And criminalization of consensual sexual relations. Yes, that's a good one right there. That needs to stop. And elopement between adolescents and imprisonment of consenting adolescent boys and girls. Oh boy, that's a deep one right there. That's a rabbit hole right there, you guys. I mean, to me, in my opinion, and I don't have children or grandchildren, I would have, but anyways. In my age frame, where I'm at, to me, it depends on how old the adolescents are. And like, where's their mindset? I mean, if they want to be together, to me, that's different. It's a lot different than like a 40-year-old man trying to get with like a 13-year-old or something. Or even a 20-year-old trying to get with a 13 or 14-year-old. Huge difference. It's my opinion. The legal prohibition of child marriage may drive the practice underground. Oh, like it already hasn't. But you know what? I don't believe that the masses believe in this stuff. I don't believe that. The practice underground and beyond the reach of the law. Like the snuff films. In some countries, the intense focus on anti-child marriage laws diverts attention away from complementary and holistic approaches to engage families and communities, and support for health, sexuality, education, and support services for girls. This holistic approach to ending child marriage is supported in the Human Rights Council resolution on child early and forced marriage in 2019. And then they list all their sources. This is from 2021. So I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.